Hello everyone, this is Shaher Dawood. Today's presentation is about the Zachman Framework and how it can be used. Zachman Framework's concept was built based on a schema that has been there for thousands of years. So it's not a new concept or a new idea, but it's been there for a while. One section of it is based on interrogative communications that include the what, how, when, who, where, and why. The second section is based on ideas transformation that include identification, definition, representation, specification, configuration, and instantiation. The concept and idea behind Zachman's framework, which is architecture, have proven its benefits from its success use and adoption in many large and complex industries that include airports, buildings, computers, and so on. Now that we live in the information age where enterprises are composed of massive data that interact through multiple internal and external systems, enterprise architecture becomes a critical element that can take away part of this complexity and simplify its interactions. This is where Zachman's framework becomes handy and can be utilized to address such complexities in the modern enterprise world. Large organizations deal with complex business activities and transactions. Minimizing complexity can lead to a better business return and better performance. Businesses are in need for adopting a framework that can help their employees organize their overall systems, equipment, processes, and so on. Frameworks provide a schema to better understand how organizations are developed and to understand the organizations better. Organizations have multiple frameworks to choose from, like the Department of Defense Architecture Framework, DODAF, the Federal Enterprise Architecture Framework, FEAF, the Treasury Enterprise Architecture Framework, TEAF, the ANSI IEEE 1471 standard, and the Zachman Framework. Then we get to the point, why do business people need a framework? Frameworks are useful for organizing business models that are related to businesses and their customers. Companies use different types of models to ensure systems interoperability, prediction of return on investment, understanding business rules, and to clearly understand the enterprise and eliminate any ambiguities. It is better to go with deploying Zachman's framework in our organization for its simplicity and its detailed coverage of almost everything related to our organization or an enterprise. Zachman framework's strengths come from its 6x6 schema. It highlights and covers organization's primary topics and elements without any duplication. Each of the Zachman's framework cells has two dimensions that include the scope, in other words, it is the width, and the detail, in other words, it's going to be the depth. Each of the framework cells contains a minimum of one simple artifact. A simple artifact contains information related only to the same single column. Let us examine the rows and columns of the Zachman's framework. We will start with the rows, which represent different views of the enterprise. First thing is the scope. The scope represents the enterprise mission, vision, boundaries, architecture, and any constraints. This is called the black box, since it describes what the business does through inputs and outputs. Also, this is called the context row. Business's model. This one highlights the business goals, structure, strategy, and enterprise processes that support the business mission. This is called the concept row. Third one is the system model. This houses the system's activities, objects, requirements, and functions. This is called the white box and the logical row. Technology model. This is the physical row, which takes into consideration the human element, technology, and materials. Detailed representation. This offers components and individuals allocation handed off to contractors for implementation for implementation's purposes. This is called out of context row. And the final one is the real system, represents the operational system. So next thing, we need to look at the columns, which represent the different aspects of the enterprise. This is the what, which is in this case the data, describes the important enterprise entities from different perspectives. This is the data container that can include business objects and equipment. Second one is how, which is functions. This column considers the inputs and outputs. It defines the different enterprise critical elements such as the enterprise operations, functions, processes, and activities. Third one is the where. In this case, it's going to be networks. It highlights and draws the interactions between the different enterprise geographical locations. Fourth one is the who, which is in this case going to be people. It represents the enterprise information that assess people capabilities and performance. This column identifies work's authority and responsibility structure. This is related to the relationships between the people and their assigned jobs responsibilities. The fifth one is when, which is of course which is time. This is helpful for scheduling, schedules design, especially for establishing performance criteria. And the final one is why. In this case, motivation. Why corresponds to motivation. It highlights the enterprise and the people's motivation. It highlights the business goals, plans, objectives, and the reasoning behind these actions. This presentation was an introduction about the Zachman's framework. It highlights the reasoning for why different enterprises should adopt Zachman's framework, and it covered how the framework can be used. And in this case, I used different resources kind of for this presentation, which is kind of highlight just in here. That's where kind of most of the information was gathered and represented. And when it comes, if there are any questions about the Zachman framework and how it looks like, which is about that, it's 36 cells. That's how they are. It highlights which is kind of the rows and the columns. Okay, and thank you for watching this video.